A fire in the ice. Hormoth's beard had finally begun to grow back, and not a moment too soon. He was no longer certain of the day or the hour, but the bite in the air, the snow gathering in the stadium, and the cold that lived in his bones told him it was deep winter. The season when even the Kodiak sleeps for fear of dying. The time when the ungodly are said to walk the earth, and even brave men think twice before stepping beyond their city walls. He lived in a cave sealed with stone each night. Survived in it more than lived. If not for his ability to summon fire, he would have frozen in the first hard freeze. He would not die here. He told himself that the day they dragged him before their leader. Cronlo, they called him. The man who had ceremonially stripped him of his name and all rights of a human being. There were only the Iqua, he was told, and he was not one of them. They treated him like a dog, made him beg for scraps, left him in his own filth. He would have scorched them all, if not for the weight of survival and something deeper still, the need for retribution. No, he would not waste his gift on anything but warmth and the cauterizing of wounds earned in the stadium. To die before he understood why his brother had betrayed him was not an option. The Iqua called themselves the People. They claimed it as truth, saying they lived in harmony with nature rather than bending it. They were not strangers to him. He had heard of them in the stories his father once told. The Iqua, the savages. Those stories had painted them in blood. Cannibals in some places, killers in others, men who waited in the dark simply to slit a throat or skin a child for sport. Names like Bloody Hands, Flesh Eater, Skull Crusher had once filled those tales, given to men for what they did rather than who they were. But these people were not those stories. What he found here was worse, in a quieter way. Not feral violence, but absence. A people dulled into something heavy and slow. A fire long buried under routine and watching. They were closer to cattle than the monsters of his father's tales. Only the stadium stirred them. Each day, warriors like Hormoth were brought out to fight, to bleed against each other or the beasts of the wild. Only then did something flicker in them. Only then did they look alive. The rest of the time, they simply endured existence, feeding on the violence without ever touching it. He had often wondered how a people could call themselves human and yet live only through the suffering of others. It was pitiful. And still, it was the only moment they seemed awake. They loved the blood, the screams. Human or animal, it made no difference once it hit the floor of the arena. Maybe it reminded them of something older. Wars that had long gone cold in memory. Glory that no longer had a name. He was still turning those thoughts over when the knock came. 6 warriors entered, bows in hand, and ordered him forward. Another fight, another sharpening of skill. Earlier that morning, he had walked the arena before the crowds arrived, bare feet against untouched snow, wind threading through the pines. For a moment, there had been a kind of peace in it. That ended with the cougar. Starved, half mad. A quick fight, nothing more. A warm-up for the crowd. Now the stadium was different. The snow had been broken and drowned in blood. Crimson spread across it, mixing with mud until the ground became a thick, shifting mire. It slipped underfoot when he moved, as if the dead still clung to him, trying to pull him down with them. "Not this time," he muttered under his breath as he stepped into the center of the arena. For all the harshness of his life, this was the only place that ever made sense. In the fight, he did not think of his wife. He did not turn over Urien's betrayal or try to make sense of Orinon's choices. There was no weight of kingdoms, no warlord's burden, no mask to wear. Only the fight, only the kill. And he had come to understand, with a clarity that unsettled him less each time, that he loved it. Stepping into the center of the arena, a guard tossed Hormoth his favorite weapon. The club spun once before he caught it, its curved neck ending in a carved hand that clutched a stone sphere. 3 razor edges sat just behind it. The pommel spike had split bone and flesh more times than he cared to count. He closed his fingers around it as if greeting an old companion. "Hello, beautiful," he said. "It is time to dance again." He stood still in the middle of the arena, eyes drifting across the ring of doors. There were too many of them, and never certainty in which would open, or how many. Experience had taught him not to trust stillness. So he watched them all as best he could, weight balanced, breath steady. One door behind him began to open. Hormoth turned with the slow ease of someone already halfway into violence. His grip tightened on them all, and a thin smile touched his mouth. It did not matter what came through. It never had. Beast or man, it always broke the same way. He only wanted the fight, the surge, the breaking point where thought fell away and something darker took its place. He knew that place well. He fed it often. The old oak door groaned on rusted hinges. Its wood had swollen and split with neglect, as all things here eventually did. The arena did not maintain what it could replace. Hormoth waited. Something moved inside the threshold. Heavy, slow. Too heavy for a bear, he thought at first. A winter-woken beast, starved and mad with cold. That would have been enough. Then an arm pushed through. The size of it stole the thought from him. The creature did not emerge so much as force itself into the world. Its bulk jammed in the frame, then dragged free with a wet strain of muscle and effort. The sound it made was not a growl, but an adjustment, as if the space itself had offended it. It rose, stretching, and the shadow of it swallowed the light around Hormoth. It was almost human in shape, but only just. Its legs were like warped trunks, knotted and thick with old power. Its chest expanded and fell with deep labouring breaths that pushed hot mist from torn green nostrils. Beneath that, a mouthful of broken, uneven teeth shifted as it tested the air. It looked wild at first glance. Then Hormoth saw its eyes. Not feral, not mindless. A knowing thing sat behind them, patient, measured. Something that had chosen what it was. And something in that recognition pressed cold against Hormoth's spine. He bared his teeth and pointed the club at it. A roar rose out of him. Not practiced, not controlled. It came from deeper than thought, from a place built out of everything he refused to carry quietly. Rage, grief, old rot, it left him raw. The sound filled the arena and then fell away. Silence answered him. Even the spectators did not move. The creature studied him, its head tilted slightly, as if considering an inconvenience. Then it shifted its weight, drew in a breath that seemed too large for its body, and smiled. When it answered, the roar carried a different weight. Hormoth felt it in his bones first. Not just sound, but intent. It was hatred given direction, not focused on him alone, but on all things that lived, breathed, or resisted it, even itself. The air struck him with saliva and foul heat. Something worse followed it, a pressure that pressed the edges of thought, as if the creature's very being refused the world around it. For the first time in the arena, Hormoth felt the ground ask him to leave. He did not step back. Running meant death. Fighting lightly meant the same. He accepted neither. He would not die here, not in this place, not under their watching walls. With a grin that did not reach his eyes, he roared again and broke forward. He met it in a single violent rush. The creature moved without hesitation. One arm swept through the air and caught him mid-charge. There was no struggle in it, only removal. Hormoth hit the ground hard enough to empty his lungs. Blood filled his mouth. He spat it out with the dirt, tasting iron and stone and something older beneath it. Somewhere beyond pain, he thought he heard laughter. Not from the stands, but from memory. From all the things that had died here before him, waiting their turn for him to join them. He pushed himself up anyway. The creature advanced slowly, unhurried, almost curious. That was the worst of it. Not strength, but patience. Hormoth adjusted his grip on the club. He understood then what it was. Not a beast, not a mindless horror. Something that knew it could take its time. It would break him piece by piece until it grew bored of what remained. The thought was almost simple. He had no interest in being played with. He struck first, driving the razor edge of his war club into its path. Whenever he struck a man, skin split fast, often an artery with it. Victory followed shortly after that. Beasts held thicker hides, more resistance, but the war club always did its work in the end. Not this time. It did not even mark the Goliath's skin. The thing swatted Hormoth aside as if he were weightless. He hit the wall hard enough for the impact to ring through bone before sound returned to him. For a moment he stayed there, half-folded, listening to a world that would not steady itself. The crowd should have been loud. They used to chant his name when he stalked prey, when blood made the arena honest. Now there was nothing he could trust. His hearing broke into a dull ringing. His breath felt distant, like it belonged to someone else. Even the ground seemed unsteady, shifting under him in slow waves. Get up! The thought came sharp, urgent, not fear yet, but the shape of it pressing in. He pushed himself upright. The creature waited, patient, almost bored. It scratched at its beard with thick fingers, nails dragging through filth and tangled hair. Something moved in it, small things scattering, vermin fleeing the motion. It was studying him, toying with him. Hormoth tightened his grip on the mace. A quick judgment told him the truth he did not want to admit. Strength alone would not break it. Gods, what no? He thought. Fear rose, close enough to taste. Then another thought cut through it, cleaner than panic. Not careful, not wise, just certain enough to move him. He opened his hands. The club fell. He stepped forward with his arms spread, empty, the old sign of surrender. Peace, in places that still remembered such a thing. The creature did not. It grabbed him around the waist and lifted him in one motion, pulling him close as if inspecting a broken animal. Bone compressed under its grip, pain flared through his ribs, sharp enough to steal thought. His body demanded air. There was none. Each breath failed halfway, crushed back into him. The world tilted, sound thinned, darkness pressed at the edges of his sight. Hold. He waited. The creature brought him up to its face. It sniffed, then laughed, a deep, wet sound that carried something foul with it. Breath washed over Hormoth, thick and rotting. He fought the urge to retch and forced it down, keeping what control he had left. The creature spoke, or something like it, not language he knew. It sounded like amusement. Hormoth moved. Not wildly, not in panic. Deliberate. His hands struck the creature's face, small blows meant to mislead more than harm. A slap, a punch, nothing that mattered. The creature barely reacted. Then his fingers found the edge of its eyes. The shift in it was instant, too late to correct. Hormoth drove both hands in and released what he had been holding back since the moment it lifted him. Fire snapped forward, close and contained, forced into shape at the point of contact. Flame tore into the sockets. The creature howled and dropped him. He hit the ground hard, rolling once before coming to a stop. Air returned in ragged pulls. Pain came with it, all at once, as his ribs remembered themselves. The beast staggered, clawing at its face, blinded and screaming. Hormoth stayed still for a heartbeat longer than he should have, forcing his lungs to obey him again. 1 minute, maybe less. He rose. The club lay nearby. He fetched it. The creature was on its knees now, both hands covering its ruined eyes, noise breaking out of it in confused bursts. Not speech, not reason, just pain. Just like anything else, Hormoth thought. It was always the same once they broke. He walked forward. Heat gathered along the spike of the club as he went. Not sudden, not wild, controlled, fed slowly until the metal began to glow with a faint, dull light. At the knee he struck. The spike drove in. The joint held for a moment, then gave in pieces. The creature collapsed with a sound that shook the air around them. Hormoth did not hesitate. He drove the weapon into the side of its head next, forcing it deep until resistance gave way with a dull internal pop. The scream that followed was weaker than the first, broken by shock. He stepped back only long enough to avoid the flailing arm, then moved in again, cutting at what was left, working through sound and motion until the thing could no longer do anything but lie there and endure. It tried to speak. It came out as pleading. Hormoth did not slow. He circled it once, breathing steady now, letting the rhythm return to him. Blood slicked the ground beneath his boots. The creature's movements were fading, collapsing inward. He stopped at the only unbroken part of its head, a small stretch of skull beneath dirty hair. He lowered the club. The creature tensed, waiting.
"Don't worry," Hormoth said quietly. "You will not be disappointed."
He struck, then again, and again. Each blow came heavier than the last, not because the body required it, but because something else was building behind his ribs, something older than the fight in front of him. Rage. Not clean rage, not controlled, something that had gathered everything he had ever buried and fed it into the motion of his arms. Every insult, every loss, every betrayal that had once been called necessary, every name he had stopped hearing when he became what he was. It all rose together. Then it broke. A sound cut through it, not loud, not commanding, just wrong in a way the arena could not contain. Meris. His hands stopped mid-motion. For the first time since the creature had lifted him, Hormoth did not move. The world did not feel unsteady now. It felt empty, as if something had been removed from it without warning. He turned. The arena, the blood, the dying thing at his feet, all of it fell away in pieces as he walked. She was there, not standing, not waiting, down where the stone had taken her light. Hormoth crossed the distance without thinking, each step heavier than the last, as if the ground had changed its mind about holding him. When he reached her, the rest of him, the part that had broken armies and held cities in fear, did not know what to do. Meris lay still. Her breath came shallow, uneven. Blood darkened the ground beneath her in a slow spread that did not match the speed of anything he had just done. He knelt. His hand hovered above her for a moment, uncertain in a way no battlefield had ever made him.
"Meris,"
he said. Her eyes moved, barely finding him. That was all. The strength left him in a quiet collapse that no weapon had ever managed. Rage took over, and he was blinded by hatred. He no longer saw the crushed skull or the grey matter splattering across the ground. He saw the faces of the assassins who killed his wife and unborn child. He saw the face of a so-called brother who had abandoned him for an altruistic quest, dressed in morality. He saw every wrong ever done to him, every betrayal given shape and skin. He let it all rise. He stopped holding it back and became what they always feared he would become. A monster. When the beast fell, the crowd had screamed in excitement. But as it became clear Hormoth had lost himself and become something less than human, the cheers began to die. Shouts thinned into scattered cries, then into strained silence. The sound of the skull being caved in grew heavier in that quiet. Each impact of wood on bone and brain turned the field sick and still, until even the crowd seemed unsure of what they were witnessing. Murmurs spread. Women pulled their children away. Men began shouting for someone to stop the man on the field. When 2 guards laid hands on Hormoth, his rage surged through them like a current. He turned on them without hesitation. With strength born of fury, he lifted them both and hurled them into a nearby wall. They dropped unconscious before they could move again. He finished what he had started, turning their bodies into ruin as he had with the giant. When their heads finally went still, Hormoth stood over them, blood and gore dripping from his face. He looked up through it and saw the remaining bystanders. Their expressions were sharp with disgust and fear. He answered it by raising his club high.
You are scared, disturbed by what you see. Have you lost your taste for blood and murder sport? Do not turn away now, slack-jawed cattle. You did this. You brought this upon yourself. You have completed me and awoken the demon.
A murder of ravens descended upon the corpses as Hormoth stood in the aftermath, still breathing hard, still lost in the shape of his victory. He did not notice the guards until the first blow struck the back of his head. The world snapped dark, and silence took him again.